Coming to you live from Radio Cayman Studio.
For the record.
For the record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you. The record. Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the record.
The record. Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Orit Connor.
Good morning, Cayman. Actually, this is Laura Young. I'll be hosting the show today, and I'm sitting in for Mr. Orit Connor, who's off. And we are going to be discussing the Oxytec general genetically modified mosquitoes. We have in the studio with us will be the Leader of the Opposition, the Honourable William McKeeva Bush, and also Mr. Dwayne Ebanks and Miss Katina Anglin, who actually has spearheaded the petition that was being circulated in West Bay. So we look forward to a very interesting and exciting discussion this morning. Please stay tuned, and when we come back from the break, actually there's no break. There's no break this morning. I'm so used to doing talk today, so bear with me, listening audience. I hope that you're having a wonderful Friday. It is a beautiful day in the Cayman Islands, and every day that we wake up in this beautiful place, we are certainly grateful to God for giving us such a beautiful place, such a wonderful country where we have open and free dialogue, such as For the Record. And of course, our 12 o'clock show today will be coming live from Cayman Brack. With Sterling Dwayne Banks. So we just want to say have a great day from everyone here at Radio Cayman, and certainly keep tuned in to us. We do want you to take part of our discussion today, this morning, as you normally do. It's always an invigorating time within the Cayman Islands when you tune into For the Record, normally with Mr. Orit Connor. We hope that he's having a good time off. The number to call is 1-800-534-8255. Compliments of Flow are 949-8037. Good morning, Miss Anglin.
Good morning, Laura. How are you this morning?
I'm good. This is something new for me. I don't know why it's so new, but it's just maybe because it's early in the morning. It's a different show, and it's such a very personal, sensitive topic. It could be a combination of things. And Mr. Dwayne Banks.
Good morning, Laura.
Yes, I recall so long ago when you were actually on the air all the time, and now I'm actually sitting across doing the interview with you.
That's a different time, different space, but
yes,
nonetheless, we keep the fight.
Yeah, we keep the fight, and we keep expressing our opinions and views in a polite and diplomatic way, but certainly continuing to ensure that we have the right dialogue about the serious issues, such as the one that we're going to discuss this morning.
Yes, that's our focus.
And on that note, I will ask you to actually just tell us why you're here today.
Well, certainly, I like to speak for myself, but I know I'm part of a group, a small group, and and I have one of our great members here with us.
Good morning to you too, Dwayne.
Good morning to you too, Katina. Well, Laura, why we're here is because, quite honestly, I came here with one focus this morning, and that is to not mince words. I'm disgusted. I'm perturbed. I'm upset. Personally, that is. Not in this very moment, but I guess collectively. Yeah, still waters run deep, my grandmother told me. But at the decision that our government made in regards to going ahead, despite the many objections in West Bay, for the release of the genetically modified mosquito. It is perhaps one of the most disturbing things for me in a very long time. Laura, I'm gonna say this. I think it's important that I set the foundation. For me, when I first heard about this project and the fact that it was coming to West Bay, you have your immediate concerns of what does this mean? What are they trying to achieve? What is this company bringing? What are the benefits? I tried to look at it from a very personal angle in terms of all the information that I had, which, by the way, was skimpy.
It was very limited in the beginning to the public.
Very limited.
Time.
We heard that there were and the only reference or basis that I had at that time was the release that took place in East End that I could reference.
And that was some time back.
And that was quite some time back. 2009, 2010, 2010 I think is when it happened. But in all fairness, it happened in East End. And I fear that that's what's happening again for many people throughout the country. It's happening in West Bay. You know, there's that story about it happens to somebody else. You don't really say anything and you keep doing that until it comes to you. And then there's really nobody else to join in. So when it happened for the people in East End, yes, I was concerned back then, but it was on a very minute, if you will, scale, very small scale back then. And there was very limited information, certainly not the kind that we have now. And to be honest with you, what I've discovered in the midst of my research that has gone on since starting this trail is that we had to trust, I guess, inherently, deeply, the work of the MRCU and their analysis of it back in 2010. And it's for that reason back in 2010, I specifically remember sharing with my friends and family my thoughts behind it on my personal social media page, which was that at that time, I trust MRCU's judgment in the midst of all this because, well, there's very little else to go on.
And we trust them on a daily basis, right?
And we trust them for many years.
For many years, to
manage the mosquito problem in Cayman. But since then, I was told by those who on the surface thought that this was a lack of knowledge, or, well, I guess it was in the broader scheme of things. I was told to attend the West Bay meeting and to prepare myself and to read and to do research. So I started doing that. And the more I did research, Laura, the more questions that I had. And so I went there to that West Bay meeting armed with questions to ask OSATAC. And a great deal of it was came out of the report that was done by the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, in North America, which released a study of a report called
it's the preliminary finding of no significant impact. That's the report that was produced in March 2016. Yes.
March 2016. In fact, they were referring to one that came before that date, and it was me that said, I'm reading the one of March 16th. As a result of reading, a great deal of that report, in fact, I attended with someone who had read all of the report, some 200 and something pages. That's where most of our questions came from. And as a result of putting most of those questions to OSATAC and MRCU, I guess, and the ministry, because they were present, we became even more concerned about the answers and even the withholding of information in our view. For example, prior to that meeting, nowhere had they stated that they were releasing females, which we understand are the biting partner, if you will, the biting half of the mosquito. The males don't and the female do.
That's correct.
Right. And it was as a result of reading that report that we learned, and when I put that to them, that we learned that they were releasing females, or a certain percentage of their release would be females. Now, mind you, in that meeting, the percentage that was given was different from the one that we heard the other morning that the gentleman gave, Mr. Lacroix gave. Lacroix, compared to Miso. Mr. Lacroix.
It's actually French, but yes.
Yeah, oui. Sorry, Mr. Lacroix. That Mr. Lacroix gave on this very show on Wednesday. It's also a slightly different percentage to what we have found in our research. So it varies anywhere from...
Now, in your research, if I may interject at
Sure.
this point, that it's varying. It's the varying information and that is coming from our MRCU and Oxitec, their percentages are varied over time. Could it be that it's changed over time, perhaps because of the ongoing project and their analysis and assessments?
I can't answer that for you, but I can say that. Well, I could interject a couple of thoughts. I don't know how. I'm trying to be as honest as I can in the midst of this as well. What I'll say to that, Laura, is that I doubt that. I doubt that very highly. Maybe it's because they don't know themselves. And I say that, well, I say that because the other morning he said it was 0.5%.
As a matter of fact, he said when he was asked the question by obviously quite a bit of an informed individual in our community, how much of that percentage it would be, Mr. LaCroix stated 0.03%, and he left it there, and that was, in his presentation, an absolute figure. When in actual fact, it goes on up to 18%.
And that is, and at that meeting in West Bay, Katina, the percentage that was given was, I want to say it was 1%, if my memory serves me correct, that Mr. Nemo, who was the other scientist in this, Dr. Nemo, gave at that meeting. And we did the quick calculations at that time. So we were dealing in a way from, what was it, 1,500 to 1,500 to something close to 144,000 based on the percentages. But it's not just what was said here, it's also what they have in terms of history.
Sorry, and those percentages could only be calculated because of the amount that they presented to us as a release amount still was not an absolute figure.
No.
And that was a mid-range figure that was calculated to place it center point.
So, pretty much center point, because when we asked about how much was being released totally, he, Mr. Nemo again, mentioned that it could be as low as 35,000 or as high as 400,000 per release, and each release, they were doing 3 releases per week. So we calculated the figures at 200,000, since, well, we picked somewhere that we thought would be reasonable. But why is that important for your guests? It's important, or for the listening audience. It's important because we've just increased then the amount of biting females within the community. We've just increased, which also can carry any disease if it's available in the public. And we just heard the news yesterday, the sad news yesterday about the testing for 4 Zika cases. So we just increased the potential for disease, vector-borne diseases or that carry diseases within the community. But the important thing beyond that, Laura, is that we really don't know, which is at the crux of this for us, we really don't know the final outcomes of releasing genetically modified mosquitoes within this community.
And I think that's really where a lot of concern lies with this project, is that we don't know. And we don't know because we weren't informed. And even in our quest for information, we still aren't being properly informed, because their information that's being presented to the public, as in the one example that we just listed out here, is either very vague or contradictory. And according to the National Academy of Sciences, and that's if you're in the science field, you know that name, and they know yours as well. And it says that under the heading of public engagement, it says, quoted, "There is a broad agreement on the importance of engaging affected communities, stakeholders, and broader publics in decision-making about activities involving gene drives." Now, this is a gene drive. It's a genetically modified creature. "Public engagement can help to frame and define the risk of gene drives and modified organisms and provide input into practical decision-making and policy. The outcomes of engagement may be as crucial as the scientific outcomes to decisions about whether to release of a gene-drive modified organism into the environment. Thus, engagement cannot be an afterthought. It requires effort, attention, resources, and advanced planning." Now, see, Oxitec and MRU, who have partnered on this, are now engaging the public post-contractual signatory. In actual fact, they should have brought this to the public prior to having made the decision that they're going to release it, and post or applied pressure to educate the public. If at the end of the day the public is properly educated and they say, I'm willing to be a guinea pig, I'm willing to be a test model, I'm willing to be a known informed participant in a research experiment, then go right ahead. The public has spoken.
Yeah, they're comfortable. We're going to pause, take our first commercial break, and when we come back, we will continue our discussions. Welcome back to For the Record. I want to make sure I don't want to say talk today. It's too early for that. Your host, Laura Young, sitting in for Mr. Orrit Connor, and for the listening audience who's just joined us, good morning. I hope you're having a great Friday morning so far. The guest in the studio with us this morning is Mr. Dwayne Banks and Miss Katina Anglin, both West Bay residents, who are here to discuss the ongoing issue or matter. I want to say an issue. It's an issue. Dwayne's going to correct me. The ongoing issue of, I would like to clarify that there was not enough pre-timely public consultation. And we'll get into more of the details of what this project is about. Just to sort of give a preamble, we actually did the intro as to the concerns that both Miss Anglin and Miss Ebanks has expressed. We do have one caller on the line. Caller, good morning. Go ahead, you are on air.
Good morning, everybody. This is number one from the BRAC.
Good morning.
Good
How's the
morning.
BRAC today?
Sir.
Oh, the BRAC is halfway cloudy, halfway shine.
Okay.
They call that overcast.
At least we're getting Radio Cayman 100%.
Oh, and I'm going to miss that. Maybe
You
next.
gonna miss that?
Maybe next time.
Well, tough luck. I know you're coming through 100%. And I'm listening to you.
No, I mean I'm not going to be there on ground to actually see you in person.
Well, lady, you ain't missing nothing. I'm telling you facts.
Are your own words.
So what is your opinion this morning on the topic to be discussed?
I would like to say this. Just give me 2 or 3 minutes. When they're bringing out medications, you hear the side effect, it can kill you. Give you all kind of things, your heart, your lungs, this and that. Every type of medication. This thing is coming out to try and control the mosquitoes. Don't they say it will not kill you, it will only affect, I don't know if you should say pregnant mothers then.
Yes, go ahead.
Am I right?
So say that again, sir. Can you repeat the question or
They
your statement?
said that the effects of it will not kill you. It will only affect a woman that is pregnant or a child.
You're referring to the Zika. I think you're going into that Zika.
Yeah.
And the purpose of this project is to ensure that we control the spread of any of the diseases, including the Zika and the chikungunya. That's
Right.
Which is what we're going to actually get into, sort of give a preamble when we're finished with your call. But yes, sir, go ahead.
Well, that's what I want. I thought that's what all you were talking about.
Yes, we are, sir.
Yeah, well, I said that they should make them try it. Leave them alone.
Okay, you're in support of it. Is that what you...
Yes, I am,
Yes, sir.
100%. And they can come and spray it at my place anytime.
All right. All right, Mr. Hunter.
Don't be afraid, because that's how they find out about things. They have to be tried different ways.
All right, sir. We certainly appreciate your comments and your opinion.
I'm listening to you, and keep up your good work, and don't shut off Radio Cayman.
Thank you, and have a great day.
You
Thank-
too, all of you.
Thank you so much.
Laura,
Mr.
there's
Thank you for that, caller. Go ahead, Dwayne.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. I guess I won't do you what OSATAC and all the other people have done for us that are concerned, so you have your right to that. I don't know how many other brackers would love for buckets of mosquitoes to be poured in their environment that are genetically modified. But
Before talking to them.
before talking to them and certainly proving to them that really there's no harm to them, which OSATEC has not been able to prove. Certainly anything that we have found I think there's a great difference, though, and this was brought up the other morning because I did hear that caller's call on Wednesday, and also heard other callers who called, and the sad reality is that this wasn't pointed out, the very real difference. This genetically modified mosquito, in the case of West Bay, 22 million that will be released, is not to address the mosquito problem in Cayman, as that caller just alluded to. That caller may not know or may have missed, because I do believe Dr. Petrie mentioned that the other morning, in fairness. But it certainly may have been missed because it was in the midst of a lot of other information. There are some 36, according to MRCU again, because I don't know, 36 other mosquitoes in Cayman.
Yes, and that was actually mentioned on the Wednesday show when I did talk today, and that caller was he had called in, not sure
as
whether
well, the same thing.
Whether I think he probably got it. I just think he has a very very practical response and in support of it.
But he makes an important point that I think that many people
will miss.
Will miss in understanding this. So 36 other mosquitoes, and this particular project is meant to address one. The Aedes aegypti mosquito, which I understand again from all I've read, and certainly from MRCU over the years, is perhaps the greatest threat that we have, because it's a vector for a number of diseases that we've heard. So it's not to address those mosquitoes, Mr. Hunter, that's eating you alive from the swamped area around the Brack and West End. It is to address the one that's up close to you and personal. Now, it's meant to address that. But he mentions about research, and that's at the crux of this. Because the way that we see this, and we come back to this, Laura, we've kind of looked at this from four broad areas. Four broad areas is there's the regulatory obligations, which we think the government has failed us on. There is the science in this. And then there's the alternatives. So what are the alternatives that this country has to fighting the Aedes aegypti mosquito? And it's only that mosquito we're talking about. And then finally, there's the human in this. What is the human saying in this? And that last one is the important one for me, because one of the ladies, there was a lady in West Bay that said to me, listen, I don't care what the science says. I don't care about much else except that I don't care to be bitten by genetically modified mosquitoes. I have no desire to be bitten by a genetically modified mosquito.
And is that because of lack of information of understanding the objective and the purpose?
I don't think it was.
Okay.
I just think it was her. I think it was her understanding about genetically modified products to start with.
And I think
we're going to have to pause. Sorry about that, because we're going to go to the newsroom, and when we come back, we will continue with our For the Record. Good morning. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm your host, Laura Young, sitting in for Mr. Art Connor. And in the studio with us, we have Ms. Katina Anglin and Mr. Dwayne Ebanks. And we are discussing the overall matter of the release of the Oxitec and MRCU project of the mosquitoes into the environment, in West Bay in particular. If you may permit me, guest, I would love to say good morning to my son, Jaron, who has actually had to, give me permission to come on the radio. He's just not used to his mommy getting up so early. So, Jaron, do have a great day at school.
Thank you, Jaron.
Thank you so much for letting us have your mom for this.
She's much better looking than OC.
Oh, we do have a caller on the line. Caller, good morning. Go ahead. Hello, good morning. Go ahead. You're on air.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, sir.
You and your family.
So,
I got a report tonight.
Sorry, we're not really hearing you clearly.
You're not hearing me? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, I was reading in this report that I got. It was done June the 4th this year. And they were talking about the release of these things in Florida, which I think in Florida go to court. I think it's a place called
Could you tell us? Do you know the name of the report? Do you have the name of the report handy that you could just share with us?
Well, the title of it says. Let me see what it says. The price we pay for fighting pests with chemicals and genetic engineering. And it talks about the release of these mosquitoes in Florida, in a place called Key Haven. And they are resistant to this whole idea because nobody was giving them all the information that they wanted to hear. And they're going to be doing it in areas where there is, schools and old people's homes and all that kind of thing. And one of the things and it talks about, it says what could go wrong. But let me say this first, that it also mentions the Cayman Islands and what we're doing here. It says that the Cayman Islands recently approved full deployment of the Oxitec mosquito starting in June. Now, nobody has said this, what I'm going to say now, but it's saying that with weekly releases of thousands of mosquitoes scheduled to continue for at least 9 months, which would put us somewhere in February. Nobody told us that, but that's what they're saying, and I'm sure they must have got their information from Oxitec.
Well, actually, for clarification and to bring some objectivity to that, sir, that was mentioned on the show on Wednesday, and perhaps you did miss it. But it is MRCU has and Oxitec has provided that information as to the times that it will be released and how often. Now, was that done in the beginning? Certainly, I'm not going to say yes or no on that, but it was mentioned on the Talk Today show on Wednesday. I can clarify that they have publicly.
Let me read what it's under the heading of what could go wrong, and that'll take me about 2 minutes to do that. But I think it would be important to hear this.
Okay.
It says while disseminating Aedes aegypti populations may sound like a good solution to eliminate the transmission of disease, there are always the potential of unforeseen side effects. A 2011 article in the New York Times brought up a number of concerns, including the possibility that these genes might infect human blood, not through insect bites, but by finding entry through skin lesions and inhalation. According to the Institute of Science in Society, such transmission could potentially create insertion mutations and other unpredictable types of DNA damage in the host. Alfred Handler, PhD, a geneticist at the Agriculture Department of Hawaii, has also pointed out that mosquitoes can develop resistance to the lethal gene. If such mosquitoes were to be released, the resistance could spread to the offspring. According to Todd Shelley, an entomologist for the Agriculture Department of Hawaii, 3.5% of the insects in laboratory tests, these are the ones that they're testing in the laboratory, actually survived to adulthood despite carrying the lethal genes, which they're supposed to kill them.
That's right.
Within 2 days, I think they're supposed to die within 2 days.
Another factor that could make the GE mosquito backfire is the fact that Oxitec mosquitoes were designed to die in absence of tetracycline, which is introduced in the lab in order to keep them alive long enough to breed. However, tetracycline and other antibiotics, that's what it is, are showing up in the environment, in soil, in surface water, such as lakes and pools of water, that it's all over the place.
Cat food.
And if it's there, this is what they're talking about now. The mosquitoes were designed with the assumption that they would not encounter tetracycline in the wild. With tetracycline exposure, for example, in a lake, these insects could possibly thrive. You see, these are the things that nobody's telling us, and these are the things that could happen and likely to happen. And until people get the truth about this, people can always be skeptical, and it's a terrible thing to think that this little island, we have given them permission to come here to do this, and God forbid if we get some mutated disease or something down here, oh God heaven. That's all. That's my 2 cents for the morning, ladies and gentlemen. But I hope that anything we do here now, and I also want to mention that of course, the the Brexit thing is going through, and Britain is now out of the European Union. So look for some repercussions of that down here in Cayman too. So don't know where to start. It's getting bad. Thank you.
All right, caller. Thank you for that.
I think, Laura, just real quickly, I think that caller raises such an important point, and I thank him for it, because we have the exact document that he's reading right before us, and we followed it word for word, pretty much almost. And the important thing out of that though is that Florida, and here's some of the misleading things that's come out. In the meeting in West Bay, I'm going to Florida. In the meeting in West Bay, as OSATEC has done in all of its presentations that we've seen on YouTube when they have presented to countries, particularly in Florida though, to the groups in Florida, they presented as if they were, this has been improved in Florida, it's been full scale across Brazil, the whole nine. This is when they were selling it as if we really weren't an experiment. And by the way, again, if we haven't said that yet for the morning, the Cayman Islands is being subjected, the people of Cayman is being subjected as human test subjects. This isn't a end all be all. In fact, we'll be the feather in their cap, which is why things like that release that he just stated could actually quote that the tests are taking place here. And the test that they're talking about is this one that they're getting ready to launch for the next 9 months. I can tell you and almost put any 2 cents I have in the bank, which is none, but if I had any 2 cents in the bank, that GMO Florida was a great part of advising the details on Cayman, and that is because our small group has been in touch with them, and much of the information that we've shared in relation to the GM mosquito and the studies and the FDA reports and that sort of thing has come directly from them. But they are taking this so serious. They have been able to keep OSATEC out of releasing those GE mosquitoes, genetically engineered mosquitoes or genetically modified mosquitoes, either way you want it, out of Florida for 4 years. It hasn't been recent, and they're taking this to a referendum vote in next year's vote. That's how serious that
they just won that.
They just won that
right,
this week
on
Wednesday. Yes.
So it appears that the preliminary finding of the no significant impact report that they referred to as an OXITEC and MRCU at your meeting was a preliminary finding that would see that there was no issues, because that report saw that there was no issues with the release of the mosquitoes in certain parts of Florida, or in a particular one part of Florida.
Right, and that
now,
was...
And now we're seeing that there are other parts of Florida, because actually the report does refer to as well that they would have to go through a consultative process should they have wanted to release, and that's OXITEC in another part of Florida.
So I believe that the FDA report of no significant impact was as a result of the similar pilot program that took place in East End. They did a similar thing in Florida.
Okay.
After that release is where they produced that FDA report.
But for clarity, the project that's ongoing now and the releases that are impending,
where here in Cayman,
that the releases that are here in Cayman, this report that MRCU. I got that right.
Yeah, the collaborator.
And OXITEC, that for clarity, the report is March 2016, that it seems that this was done prior to it being...
Well, to the thing that's taking place here.
In Cayman.
But, and let me tell you the significance of that.
Which is the weight they're placing on that they've had they've had the approval of the FDA.
Right, and which is very misleading. And here's the reality.
Well, why is that misleading though?
Well, here's the reality. A lot of the questions that were raised in the no significant impact assessment, and there were questions, a tremendous amount of questions, and they pointed out a number of challenges to OSATEC to provide to them to meet the science behind this, to say that there will be absolutely no problems whatsoever with the release of the genetically modified mosquito. We believe so this consultation of this report of no significant impact, Laura, goes through a 4 to 6 months consultation period.
Yes.
And at the end of it, the FDA will then decide whether they will issue a an environmental impact a statement, which is totally different from this initial one that takes place. In that statement is where they will then make a final determination based on further submissions by OSATEC. I am submitting to you that the tests that they're doing here will be part of that submission that they submit in order to get that green light in the U.S. So we are being their test model. We're going to be their feather in their cap. And you know what else?
Because this is really a preliminary findings report for clarity.
Preliminary, that's all it is.
Versus a conclusive report.
And you know why else I draw that conclusion as well? We have been asking about whether Cayman Islands government has paid any money to OSATEC to experiment on us, or whether this was purely a scientific thing. And we got the answer the other day in the studio when I called in, where the gentleman, Mr. LaCroix, actually answered and said they have received no money yet to date. Now, what's significant about that and important about that is this: just prior to that, Dr. Petrie,
yeah, that's correct,
had actually stated and tried to make the argument that, hey, OSATEC is the company, they should be entitled to make money like all other companies. I'm paraphrasing. And basically what he's saying is that, they spend lots of money on pesticide, the company that makes the pesticides and the company that makes the parts for the planes, and they spend lots of money, so why not OSATEC? Well, you tell me why OSATEC feels so good about the Cayman Islands and removing the genetically modified mosquito from Cayman, that they want to come here and release 22 million of their eggs, which costs money, and do it for nothing in Cayman. So what does that draw? That leads me to this conclusion, that this is purely an experiment for them. This is where they get their white feather in their hat to be able to go on. And what does the Cayman people get from it? Well, there could be some benefits, yes, but it's not to totally eliminate the genetically modified mosquito. And I draw that conclusion from the fact that we had a budget prior to OSATEC experiment of $4 million a year to MRCU. The next budget increases it to $9 million. $9 million. And listen, that's not to fight, Mr. Hunter, again, at you. That's not to fight the 36 other mosquitoes. That's one mosquito. Now, and there are alternatives to fighting them, which we haven't touched on. Are you implying the difference then of $5 million is perhaps for this project? I think this $5 million is to buy more eggs for OSATEC mosquitoes, since Dr. Petrie said that the only downside to it is that we have to keep introducing the genetically modified mosquito. Mind you, we don't have anything conclusive, and he said we hope that it's going to have a great outcome. We don't have nothing that says that it's going to do its job, and But Mr. LaCroix, I think it's Renaud LaCroix. There was a question from a caller, actually asked the question, has it been tested anywhere else and proven? And I do recall him saying that that there was some results from the actual testing in Brazil. Well, in Cayman, they claimed after the East End release that it was something like 96% touted on the reduction of the Aedes aegypti mosquitoes in that area. I don't have anything to disprove them, and I, again, going at the integrity of MRCU, they have done a very good job at giving us information to date that is credible. So I won't challenge that. So Brazil has a lot of issues. One that is, I know my colleague here, Katina, she's touched me because she wants to be able to chime in on that whole Brazil thing, and please feel free to. And we're going to allow her to do that, but we're going to take a short.
Just one moment for me. Let me clear this up before we take another break.
Okay.
In actual fact, MRCU has released a documentation in which it said that the GM mosquito in the East End trial cleared up 80%. Now they're back for their third round, and now they're saying that it's 90%. As a matter of fact, they've got up to 97% effectiveness, and there's only 3% remaining for them to eradicate, which then bears the question, if they eliminated 97% on 14,000 mosquitoes before, then why do they need $22 million to eradicate the remaining 3%. But MRCU itself actually released a document that said that they had eradicated 80% of the Aedes aegypti mosquito in East End. And not 90% as they're now claiming. So they've increased it by another 10% again.
And as a follow-up question to that, great information, Tina. Thanks for sharing that before we do go to the break. But yes, we needed to get that out. Wouldn't you then think that that was the percentage relative to the East End area? And they did say that they once they run the test in West Bay, they're going to take the project throughout the island.
Right.
So is it perhaps for argument's sake that there are more mosquitoes than just that percentage, and the elimination was based on the percentage that was perhaps within East End? I'm just saying.
Well, then, that question...
And not on a total figure, but on a percentage based on the district.
That question then bears weight to exactly why we need a formal, informed consent and education process so that questions such as that, MRCU can answer.
And clarify. We're going to pause, take a break. When we come back, we're going to continue on more For the Record. Welcome back to For the Record. And the break I was telling them that it was a little bit challenging for me to not say talk today. So the guest, Miss Anglin, said, yeah, it's interesting that you could say, let's talk today for the record. Anyway, I don't know. My daughter's listening. She'll probably say, oh, Mommy, stop being corny. But anyway, for those who are listening, we do want you to join in with our conversation. We want to hear from you on this very important topic that is facing the Cayman Islands and certainly affecting everyone across the islands, not just the District of West Bay, on the Oxitect project of the releasing of the genetically modified mosquitoes, the Aedes aegypti.
Aedes aegypti.
So the number to call is 1-800-534-8255, compliments of flow, or 949-8037. Now, prior to the break, Ms. Anglin was certainly giving us some information from an article and talking about the certain percentages. And I know, Dwayne, you wanted to follow up on her comment there.
In regards to the percentages? Well, I think it's important also to just mention that one of the reasons why, and this is from Dr. Petrie, again, who I respect, he mentions the fact that there needs to be more males released in the environment than what exists. And I heard a figure somewhere in the region of 20,000 estimated or something of the Aedes aegypti mosquito. It's probably millions of our Cayman swamp mosquitoes. If anybody lives anywhere near the dikes, they could probably attest to that. But and the reasons for that is just so that you have to inundate the sample area, if you will, with those mosquitoes at a certain, almost double the rate or triple the rate or whatever, I don't know, but just a lot more, just so that they can fight their way to the female and do what it has to do. So good on them. So I'm giving their credit. The only thing about that is that we're already getting eaten alive in West Bay. I don't know about the rest of the island, but in West Bay certainly. And here's the eaten alive in terms of just to share among the mosquitoes. And I can tell you, prior to yesterday, I haven't seen an MRCU plane or fogging truck in West Bay in months prior to yesterday. And, Dr. Petrie answered that again on Wednesday, because I'd been asking that for weeks to friends on my social media network saying, have you seen a truck in West Bay? Have you seen? And it was all in plan for this. And here's the reality. So you've now increased the risk in West Bay for potential diseases that are carried by mosquitoes by allowing them to basically grow. And that's my deducement from this. And he mentions that the other day, that they're going to have to be careful, controlled spraying so that these mosquitoes, these genetically engineered mosquitoes, can do its work. So because you can't spray them if you're trying to release them so that they can do what it is they're supposed to be doing. And it's just absolutely wrong at its core, Laura. In terms of the release zone, if you live anywhere along Church Street,
Yeah, it's the southwest, right?
Well, Church Street to Reverend Blackman Road, and so any areas along that entire stretch down to Hell Road, into most of West Bay Gardens, into all the highlands behind there, and come out somewhere close to the Turtle Farm, and then all the way up Northwest Point, back along to Church Street at the four-way stop. That entire zone. Now, according to the figure that they have, that affects somewhere close to about 1,800 people in the zone.
Yes.
Now, these mosquitoes don't stay in the zone.
They fly out.
They fly. So if I was to take a guess, you're dealing roughly with about 3,600 people in West Bay of a population of nearly 12,000 people that will be directly impacted by 22 million genetically modified mosquitoes. Never mind that mosquitoes gets in cars, can end up somewhere else up the road. We're very close to a tourist area. We have huge attractions. There's tourists who go to Hell, which is all within the drop zone, and Turtle Farm for all intents and purposes. And so the reality of the situation is that we have a huge impact of people within West Bay that has not given their consent from anything I've seen. Nobody's come to me and asked me, and I live within the drop zone, and two of the MLAs in West Bay live within the drop zone. I haven't seen anything that asks me if I want to be part of a test, an experiment. And that is absolutely wrong. And why that's wrong, we've taken that from, our own share gut feelings about this. But then when you start reading information, it becomes even more pronounced. They say ignorance is bliss. I tend to believe that. But we went to the World
Medical Association.
World Medical Association. And from it, we've been able to pull the information on that comes from the Helsinki, help me, Katina, the Helsinki, what is it called? The Declaration?
The Declaration of Helsinki, which is from the World Medical Association, which is the governing body for medical principles. And the Declaration of Helsinki is actually 31 principles that should be adhered to, and it addresses, importantly above all things, the effect of research on human beings and the role that they should play, how it should be played, and in particular, informed consent. And that's really what we're pushing for is informed consent for each and every individual. And here's the declaration as quoted.
Here's the declaration. First, we'll read the one to do with risk and benefit. And you can ask me why that's important locally, because we don't have anything like that in Cayman, which perhaps we should, but certainly there needs to be some recognition about this. Risk and benefit. According to the Declaration of Helsinki found on the FDA website, it says that medical research involving human subjects should only be conducted if the importance of the objective outweighs the inherent risks and burden to the subject. This is especially important when the human subjects are healthy volunteers. Medical research is only justified if there's reasonably likelihood that the population in which the research is carried out stand to benefit from the results of the research. Here's the important crux. The objective of this trial is the reduction in mosquitoes, though this reduction has no impact on the mosquito-borne diseases. So what is that saying? That's saying that even eliminating you can't eliminate even eliminating the mosquito, the Aedes aegypti mosquito in Cayman, you still don't eliminate Zika, and you still don't eliminate dengue, and you still don't eliminate chikungunya, because that's outside of Cayman. That's how very important that statement is saying. So even if they were to totally eradicate that in Cayman, so all the more reasons why you have to think about why you're doing certain risks and stuff on people, on human beings.
And I
informed consent is the important one. Go ahead.
I think it's really important that we interject now why the Declaration of Helsinki, we see it to be so important as it relates to the release of mosquitoes. While we were talking about human beings then, is because somewhere in here there's a connection between the mosquitoes, the human being, and disease. The human and the disease then brings it into a medical field.
Yes.
And because it falls into a medical field, and the question then bears, have we addressed this from the right angle and not have really focused on environmental, but the medical aspect?
And nothing proves that more, sorry, Katina, than the recent confirmed case of the lady who caught Zika while having sex and while having relation.
Sexually transmitted.
It was sexual transmitted is what they've determined.
Right. And see, there's a lot of uninformation about Zika and microcephaly in the public. Where I think that MRCU and the Cayman Islands government has gone wrong is that it's tried to introduce the GM mosquito instead of educating on the diseases first. Perhaps if they had educated on the diseases first, the public may have helped to gear a new direction to address the concerns, because we're not particularly interested or concerned about the mosquito as such, but the potential that the mosquito has.
The dangers of the potential of the release of because
mosquitoes can transmit diseases. But then if you've got a disease that is more easily transmittable through sexual activity, then in actual fact, shouldn't we be advising the public in safe sex practices?
Well, we've had a couple of shows on that, Tina. Not to say that that's answered all the questions, but we do have a caller. We're going to take a caller. Take the call. Caller, good morning. Go ahead. You're on air.
Good morning, Laura.
Good morning.
Franklin Smith.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Mr. Smith.
And I heard, I think it's Dwayne.
Yes, sir, Mr. Smith.
Yes. Say that the plane hadn't flew over or hadn't been spraying down West Bay for a couple of months. Well, don't feel left out, my friend. He's in all the farming areas, and then the mosquitoes is killing us up here. But
wow.
I haven't seen the mosquito clean spray in 20 years.
Wow.
So don't feel left out.
Wow, just interesting.
No, it's true. I have never seen the mosquito clean spray since the 80s up in East End. They used to even volunteer and spray back in the early 80s when I had, and mid 80s when my farm was really going, that the Saratoga disease, the MRCU through the agriculture department helped to eradicate that, give us a good helping by spraying, right? So by spraying the banana plants from over in the air.
Yes.
But after that change of government, nothing took place after that.
Yeah, and I believe that the truck is what's used more than the plane actually to spray up in the eastern areas.
No, hey, listen, the amount of times that I see the plane spraying the Salinas, which is north and west of my farm, the amount of spraying that they does over in the Salinas, believe you me, but the truck can't get in to help spray in through those areas.
Yes, and agreed. I just wanted for clarification that we had spraying in those areas, but it was really only the truck versus the plane, as you and Dean have both.
Well, the truck doesn't spray how it should then, because yeah. I mean it's very hard to get in to these developments of farming developments with a truck.
And you know, and there's what's so sad about it. And again, I know we're dealing with the primary vector for disease carrying when we're dealing with the Aedes aegypti.
Yes.
But I'm going to say to you, Mr. Smith, but there's the crux of the challenge as well. I mean, he's been eaten alive by the swamp mosquito, and we're getting ready to spend tremendous. No, and I'm just saying that you're being eaten alive, like most of us, by the other mosquitoes, and while the other one, like I said, is perhaps your most deadliest. And I guess that's the balance. And we're releasing 22 million more, which we don't know whether they're going to mutate more or not, and what that's going to look like at the very end of it. That's just the reality. You just read something a while ago. Was it you continue? You just read something a while ago that talks about the potential mutation of this mosquito, which we haven't touched on or don't need to touch on, because for me it's about the process and what's happened here and how I've had my rights trampled on and discarded in the Caymanian people's objection, and those who have been objecting to this have been made to feel as if we're dumb or stupid or we don't know the science. I read.
Or we don't trust.
Or we don't trust.
Right.
Caller,
And that
caller,
we
I'm
Or
going to ask.
understand the science.
False
Caller,
and
I'm going to
misleading
ask you
statements.
to, if you don't have any other points to
Yes,
make,
but
ask you to leave us
I
there.
just want to say that it's not just the common black mosquito on be up on the farms. Believe you me, if the Aedes aegypti is those gray leg ones or spotted leg ones and stuff like that, believe you me, they're up there by the thousands the same way.
Yeah.
All right, caller, we're going to thank you. Thank you for your call. We're going to pause, take a short break. When we come back, more for the record. Good morning, Cayman. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm your host, Laura Young, sitting in for Mr. Orit Connor, who's off on break. And for those of the listening public who's just joined us, we have in the studio with us Miss Katina Anglin and Mr. Dwayne Banks, who is speaking on the hot topic, the very important topic, the very controversial topic, the very sensitive topic of the Oxitec and MRCU joint project of releasing the genetic modified mosquitoes into the environment in the Cayman Islands and in particular into West Bay. And one of the primary issues that is stemming from this conversation and all other conversation is the untimely public consultation, very brief, albeit it was. And certainly the fact that even though there were appeals with your petition, I think that that's accurate to say the petition that both you, Dwayne, and Tina.
No, there
Katina,
were a few of us.
Few of us that are a few of you all.
Some care
That-
to remain behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes, I always like the behind the scenes people.
Want to make it
that,
Those are the ones that make it happen.
that appealed to the government to actually put a halt in order for us to have a more timely discussion. And here we are having post discussions
right.
on the radio so that we can educate the public and inform them and certainly help them to alleviate some of the fears. Now, as far as public
Actually, I'm hoping that the government will revisit their decision. And,
Okay.
and there are other
That was my
methods that are
question.
coming. There's other things that's coming on board, Laura. I'm so glad you mentioned that petition because it went into the political arena. You know, there's no.
what do you mean it went into the political
Well,
arena? Expound
there's
on
no.
that.
Well, it was said, and there's no denying, and I'm not here to deny. I think everybody in Cayman knows that I ran for office in 2013.
You did?
Well, yeah, can you imagine? And
Yeah, it's been that long, huh?
yeah, but does that mean that I can't have another view on an issue or on a topic in relation to things that are important within the community, and that it doesn't have to be mosquitoes? I can tell the government this, Laura, that if I wanted to make an issue political, it wouldn't be about mosquitoes. It would be about the lack of empowerment that they have on the Cayman people and all the other stuff. So the mosquito issue and me taking up the fact that I don't want to be bitten by a genetically modified mosquito, that I don't know what the outcome is going to be like in a few years' time, if not a few months' time, would not be the one I would choose.
And in all truth and fact, everything that we discuss has a political
Ramification in
ramification in Cayman.
But-
So
but
it
that-
doesn't matter what the topic
But the
is.
sad part about that is that, in my view, in many instances, in this instance, I think that whole entire, the way that the approval came or the disapproval came or the rejection of that petition came, we have yet, for example, to have that petition answered, although it was submitted to cabinet. It came via a roundabout way in the leader of opposition making a change of heart, because initially he was with the project, but having a change of heart, and I believe it's as a result of being exposed to further information, never mind the fact that there are people within his constituency that is objecting to this. And personally wrote a letter to the premier, signed by the other two other elected members within the leader's opposition group, to the premier, asking for there to be a suspension. And instead, the government has now decided, no, we're going to railroad it even more. And I think it was done as a direct result of the fact of it coming even from that angle. That's my own personal opinion. It could never be as a result of Mr. McLaughlin being exposed to the sort of information that we've been exposed to by working with Gene Tech out of the UK and out of Florida, and reading not just people who are just objecting, lay people on the ground, reading all the peer reviews from other scientists on the work of genetically modified mosquitoes and the very hesitancy. I just heard the advert which leads me to a good segue. The advert.
From MRCU?
From MRCU, the advert. I just heard the advert.
There's nothing wrong with that. You're from West Bay.
Yeah. That they put out, and they continue to flaunt this whole thing about who it is that supports this project and otherwise, and they use the World Health Organization. On our social media page, Suspend the GM Mosquito page, we went, as a result of them constantly flaunting the WHO, we went and researched for the WHO and what they actually say about the support of the genetically modified mosquito. And Dr. Petrie mentions it the other day, but he mentions the committee. He says the VCAG committee. He mentions that on Wednesday because he talks about there's a number of people who support this or organizations that support this. He mentions the World Health Organization. Then he actually mentions the VCAG, and then
and it's also the Pan American Health Organization as well. That
I don't know too much about them, but but in this advert they also go on to talk about the Department of Agriculture, and they make this as if there's this huge body of things. Well, let me just decipher it for you. The VCAG is actually a subcommittee of the World Health Organization, and and they actually looked at a number of different. They had a number of different, and this is made up of groups of scientists from everywhere. And on their website, this is what they say about the Ocitec mosquito. It says the full-scale programmatic deployment is not currently recommended for any of the 5 new potential tools viewed by VCAG.
What time is this article? What's the date?
This is on World Health Organization's website.
Okay, but do you know the date of the release, or because I do have something else I want to read as well from PAHO and the World Health Organization.
The date that's on the one, as I recall, was in March because it was in March 2016.
Okay.
And they go on to say, however, the VCAG recommended the carefully planned pilot deployment on the operational conditions of 2 tools, and one of them was the Wolbachia-based biocontrol and the OX3 or 513A, which is the Ocitec transgenic mosquito. The important part about that is controlled deployment. They're not giving their full scale as if as to what Ocitec has been purporting and sharing in all the media. And I am suggesting to the public that the control that they're doing in Cayman is just part of that deployment. That was never told to us in the beginning. That has an impact about how people feel about what it is that's taking place. Because how this was sold was that this was the tool, the end-all, be-all. It's going to take care of the Aedes aegypti mosquito, and we're not going to have any problems. Kumbaya. Everything is, all good and okay. And it's not the case, Laura.
There's a lot of information that is not quite clear, and perhaps
left out.
Yeah, there's information, I think, that when it has been disseminated to the public was disseminated in such a fast way, and certainly not the public not ready and aware of the impact of the study, was not able to perhaps understand information because they're not the scientific persons. It was not perhaps given in a layman terms that it should have. But following up on your and then because informations are coming in bits and pieces and not in a chronological or a logical manner, then you're not understanding whether really why they never gave it to you in the beginning.
And you're being really nice. And that's fair.
I'm being objective.
You're being objective, fair, and I'm
the host.
Fair. Objectivity is crucial. We certainly are not alarmists.
Right.
Everything that we have gained in terms of knowledge, I started this conversation by sharing with you that I was ignorant to the details, and I went on a search. And the more I searched, the more questions I had, and the more that I listened to the replies, led me to more questions. So what was interesting is for me to find the YouTube posting of the meeting in West Bay, the only single meeting in West Bay after a post-decision meeting in West Bay, coming to tell us that they're going to do it. I get so mad every time I think about that.
Yeah.
What was interesting was to find that post. I didn't lose my train of thought. I just had to collect myself.
You had a moment.
I had a moment. The single meeting in West Bay, Laura, that they had, when they posted it online, they, in my view, specifically left off the question and answer period that the public had. Many of the questions that were posed to them, I think, provided a bit of a challenge for the ministry and for everybody involved. And if you're going to be open and transparent, then share all the information. Share it out there so everybody can make a decision. You know, this government has a responsibility to our health and safety. I have been in the civil service for a long time. I had been in the civil service for a long time. I know how this process works. There are a lot of senior civil servants around who made a decision, in my view. I can tell you how this went. So they talk about the Department of Agriculture and all that being involved. The Department of Agriculture probably only got involved in this process to do with bringing in those eggs in Cayman. That's probably the extent of the Department of Agriculture involvement. Is it that, because that's any animals or insects or anything that comes into Cayman comes in via, there has to have the Department of Agriculture approval. So in terms of all these other departments that are called all the time, in terms of them being involved, the National Conservation Committee, well, we happen to have the documents surrounding the procedures, the submissions that were made, and somebody on the National Conservation Committee we know asked a lot of questions because we know a lot of information was supplied to them. We've been able to find that out. However, at the end, the information that they depended on to make an informed decision was all given by Ocitec, the company who was involved.
So there's not any objectivity there as to a balanced
they probably relied heavily on the good smarts of Dr. Petrin and the good record of the MRCU in the midst of all this, which
and
is
I think
what
it's
I think the
perhaps
Premier done.
Because it was an existing relationship that they had between the MRCU and Ocitec from 2010. We do have a caller on the line. Caller, good morning. You are in air. Please go ahead.
Good morning to you, Miss Laura.
Good morning,
to your
Mr.
guest.
Halston.
Sorry, I didn't.
It's Miss Katina Anglin and Mr. Dwayne Banks.
Yeah, I'm kind of
Good morning, sir.
Voices right now, yes. It's very interesting that both the morning shows, both radio stations, two, because here's another one with Austin, that the Rooster and yourselves are both having this conversation on, and the guests over there, I believe, I just listened to some of it, is Dr. Petrie and the gentleman from Ocitec, I believe. Maybe there's someone else. So it's the persons who are more or less promoting this, and then here we have you all who see the importance and that there should be some opposition to it.
Yeah.
The thing that you said a few things that I've heard before, and it's very important that FDA acceptance is a preliminary thing. It's not a full acceptance. So they have to justify the results some more of any kind of that this is really doing the job it's supposed to do. And you're right, we were more or less like garnished from this thing that it was the be all the end all of everything. But now we see that there are certain drawbacks to it. For instance, you're saying the areas I live right in there that you're talking about in West Bay, with not spraying them for a while and not taking the usual action, that we are now subject to much more of these Aedes aegypti mosquitoes, because we know Cayman has them, a lot of them, big. And so therefore, we weren't consulted. Like you say, I don't remember anyone coming and asking me what I think about it or what, or giving a general talk about it or anything to us. The thing that concerns me is this. Over the many years, the Mosquito Research Control Unit has done a tremendous job and an excellent job of keeping us more or less free of the dangers of this mosquito, because we don't have a case here of dengue fever being, contracted here. I don't think it was. I think it was all brought here by travelers or something.
All
Yes,
the
I believe
cases
that's
here.
accurate. Hmm.
Is that so?
I think so. I think it was the travelers that came
And
in.
no
The one
Zika,
travel.
nothing. But yet there are countries. So why do we need to have this then? If we've been doing an excellent job, people have used all of what we did to get rid of mosquitoes all over the world. We consult with them. We give them information on what we have found and so forth from Dr. Digliola's days. And so why is it necessary now for us to be more or less the experimental guinea pigs for this? Because it looks as if that this is what we're going to be. We're going to be the proof of what, or the pudding, if you want to put it that way, or the proof to see that the FDA will approve, because it's very important. We all know we like to tear down America. Many people do. But we also like to say that once the FDA approves some things, it's more or less acceptable internationally. If you don't get their approval, you don't seem to be able to draw any trends of acceptance from anywhere else. And why not go to somewhere where there's an outbreak of this thing, the Zika virus, and there's 50 cases in Jamaica right now. That's confirmed. There may be many more, and that's right across the pond from us. Why not go there? Why not go to other countries where there's a higher risk, much more Aedes aegypti? I mean, I don't see the necessity of this. In other words, if something is being done here, it has to be done to help Caymanians first and the residents here. That it will definitely be a boon. It will be a great benefit for us. Why not spend this $5 million or whatever it is on more spray trucks, more people, more traps, more concentrate on getting rid of more of it right now? Why not? That would go a long ways, I imagine, to just boost up the program we're now doing, rather than taking this experimental choice. I just wondered about that, and I wondered what you think of, that this thing is really not, I mean, the panacea that panacea is supposed to be. There's no great proof, and it's a great risk, because these genetically modified mosquitoes might modify themselves out in nature. We know what they do, I don't know. I'm a layman. I'm no biologist, microbiologist by any means, but I do have a little bit of common sense, having lived on this earth for almost 70 years. Thank you very much for listening to me, and I'll listen on.
Thank you, caller. Thank you, Mr. Hurlson. Perhaps we could say that because there was a push or an encouragement to have a concerted effort across the Americas from the PAHO, the Pan American Health Organization and World Health Organization, because of the Zika outbreak, which was in another country. And interestingly, the Oxitec has started in Brazil, and that's where the Zika outbreak is. Just following on a couple of points that the caller made, that this push has come from those particular organizations, that we make a concerted effort around the Americas to embark on finding a new tool that would mitigate and minimize the outbreak. And perhaps from MRCU's perspective in the government, and we'll always say that, unfortunately, not enough public consultation and given us the opportunity to input, has done this because it was a reactive to that it was quick, and then they forgot the streamlining process, the important process of public consultation, because they wanted to be, proactive and certainly put the preventative measures in place before there is a serious outbreak in the Cayman Islands. And as you know, we like to take the lead on many things, but certainly it is very disturbing, as you've said, Dwayne, that we were not included in that process. Comments on the caller's points?
The caller, Laura, mentioned, I've listened to him previously in the past. I think he's certainly becoming much more aware about, the impact or potential impact. And then also, just as you mentioned in your summation of that, the disrespect. I'm just going to call it as it is, the disrespect for the Cayman public and our rights to be informed and otherwise when we're doing these sort of things, And that's really where it is for us. I have never felt, and Katina, I think, has shared her thoughts with me on this before, but I have never felt more boxed in than I've been in a long time with this, more boxed in regards to an issue like I've felt for this one. It is as if I have no choice in the matter. I even entertained whether I even wanted to move out of the West Bay temporarily for... It's that serious. We've had visitors.
I don't think it's wrong to, but
well,
remember
we've had visitors
going to other parts of the island. It's going to happen eventually.
Potentially,
as well.
but hopefully their science work and those that they put in West Bay at that time would have died, and they can come back. But that we know that's not all true either, because the science from the peer reviews have shared that there's a great percentage of them actually continues to live beyond the 3 days. In fact, there's one study where we wrote where some were living up to as long as 40 days. And they keep talking about this self-eliminating gene. You know what's... It's not funny about it, but all mosquitoes die.
They do.
I'm talking about just the regular ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, either they get a good slap or they eventually die.
Or they get sprayed.
So having the self-eliminating gene, I don't quite understand what touting that means. I think the thing behind that, if I was to pull away something, is to say that it doesn't get established in Cayman, so that the genetically modified mosquito does not establish its presence in Cayman as a result of having this genetically modified gene in it. We've read peer reviews that suggest that it takes two components, and I don't quite know the name that it needs, two components for this gene to work properly. And what it said was that nearly, I think the test said something like 30 to 50% didn't have the necessary components in order for this magic to work. So if that's the case, then there's a huge percentage of those that are not really doing their job, that are just being released. And what does that mean? Well, that means that you potentially then are establishing them, because their offspring will be able to survive because they didn't have it to start with. So there's so many unknowns, and this is not my view. These are peer reviews that we've read and come across, who've looked at, and they've called it their technology, they've called it their tools, who've looked at all of these things. So in regards to the caller, he's
Pretty
I think
spot on.
one moment for me, please. I think one of the caller's points where he made that he doesn't know why he came in. Allow me to interject this, if you all don't mind, that Gene Watts UK director, Dr. Helen Wallace, who's a very respected woman in this environment, says that, and I quote this, and I have a few more quotes that I'm going to pass out at the same time so that I can kind of join in the caller's view on things, and what I'm about to quote. It's not something that Dwayne has said or something that Katina has said, but I've compiled this data from reputable sources, so I'm not assuming these things, and I'm not dealing with things from off the top of my head, my own perception. This is the views of scientists, and it's the expressions of people who are looking at us from the outside and who is more intricately advised in Oxitec, in the whole entire environment, and the application of these things. So I'm just going to share this information so that we can get away from some of the assumptions that we as individuals or even those of the public may have. And after this, I kind of anticipate that somewhere out there, Dr. Lacroix or Petrie is soon going to ring in. But I want to finish off on the World Health Organization's quote that Dwayne was reading just now. And the last sentence in that paragraph, it says that the administration of this deployment must be accompanied by rigorous, independent monitoring and evaluation. Mm-hmm. Supporting the statement that independent monitoring and evaluation, of course, cannot now include Oxitec nor the MRCU, as they have opted to partner on this project, is the same view of a law firm who issued an ad on Wednesday, June the 22nd, in which it says partners can't independently supervise partners. Mm-hmm. So that means that we need to look at how are we going, if we as a country decide that we're actually going to participate in this research experiment, how then are we going to have this thing properly monitored? Mm-hmm. But going back to Dr. Wallace, she said, The British scientific establishment is acting like the last bastion of colonialism, using an overseas territory, in reference to the Cayman Islands, as a private lab. There is no excuse for funding trials without public consultation or ethical oversight to help out a spin-out company that is heavily in debt. That comment comes on the heels of a previous comment that said, much more seriously, it is clear that Grand Cayman was selected for this experiment because it has no proper regulatory regime for the control of releases of GM organisms into the wild. And as a small independent country, it does not have the resources for an in-depth analysis of research or experimental proposals that may be put forward by biotechnology or other companies. The government is not signed up to the Cartagena protocols, so the island was the ideal testing ground for Oxitec and an easy place for the company to spin the supposed benefit of its trial. Now, that is an observation made back in 2011. However, nothing changes that view even in 2016. We are still not a member of the Cartagena protocols. And
So you've actually read a couple of quotes. So the first one, because you were saying that was in 2011. That's prior.
The first one that I quoted was actually the completion of the World Health Organization's full-scale programmatic deployment, which Dwayne had touched on first. The second one was by Gene Watch's UK director, Dr. Helen Walsh. And actually, I read it in reverse because I read her specific impression of the UK colonialism that still exists in Cayman. Actually, you just need to check the architecture here in Central Town. But then also it followed on the heels of an analysis of why Oxitec chose Cayman in 2009 and 2010. Now, I'm going to stay away from all of the political inferences because until now I have heard no declaration from cabinet that it was even aware of. Now here's where I get a touch here about this whole entire thing when it starts talking about that we have no resources for an in-depth analysis of research and so on and so forth. Now, you see, they have presented this thing as though there has been the National Conservation Commission and so on and so forth, right? But until they present these documents that said that these commissions commissioned a report to assess these things, then they made a decision that was based on Oxitec's spin of things. Exactly. Now, you see, informed consent is not about you having a public meeting and then you're putting it back on YouTube, but you edit the question and answer session so that the public who views it on YouTube, who is not there at that meeting, does not have some of the questions they may have had in mind and the answers that were forthcoming or not forthcoming. And as a matter of fact, it was a result of that very meeting why we're in this room having this session today, is because of those questions that were asked. Now, informed consent, according to the Declaration of Helsinki, is, and I quote this because someone said to me one time, they said, I love to hear you speak, and whatever you say, it seems absolute. And it seems absolute because it is absolute, because what I quote and what I say is unchallengeable because I use unchallengeable sources. And the Declaration of Helsinki, under Section 2, and it talks about informed consent. And I quote, in any research on human beings, each potential subject must be adequately informed of the aims, the methods, the source of funding, any possible conflicts of interest, institutional affiliations of the researcher, the anticipated benefits and the potential risk of the study, and the discomfort it may entail. The subject should be informed of the right to abstain from participation in the study or to withdraw consent to participate at any time without reprisal. After ensuring that the subject has understood the information, the physician should then obtain the subject's freely given informed consent, preferably in writing. Now, you see, they've come into this room, they've done a couple of radio shows, and they've done these things all post-sign. They did not inform prior to. They signed a contract, we wrote a petition, they started speaking. That's not informed consent.
That's not public consultation as it should work.
And you know, I'm going to tell the government this, that I am not properly informed. I am not a willing participant in this.
Times two.
You're on this ship too, Dwayne?
I'm with you, Katina.
Oh, okay. So for all the captains of this ship, this is what we say. Brother, this program can't work.
It cannot.
It can't work because we are not properly informed. We are offering no informed signatory. We have not received anything that makes us to understand the information because everything is convoluted. It's 0.03 at some times, and then it's 0.5%, and then it's 15%, and then I have no understanding absolutely how you're going to monitor the outcome. Can you pull these mosquitoes back out of the air? If they start to mutate, and all of a sudden I have a mosquito that looks more like actually looks more like a bird, looks more like a vulture, can you take it back? What happens? How do you counter these effects? And until you can tell me what I can anticipate, which you haven't,
You're going to feel uncomfortable.
I am not informed, and this is about informed consent.
We're going to pause, take a short break, and when we come back, sorry about that, Dwayne.
Right,
we're kind of past our commercial break. We're going to pause, take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to conclude our discussions with our wonderful guest. Welcome back to For the Record. It is Laura Young and not Art Connor, as you've been listening to me for the last almost 2 hours. Well, just about 2 hours. He's off taking a break. And in the studio with us, we have Miss Katina Anglin and Mr. Dwayne Banks, residents of West Bay, in the discussion of Oxitec's project along with MRCU. How credible is Oxitec, Mr. Ebanks? And for the benefit of the listening public, Oxford Insect Technologies, which is the correct name, was founded in 2002, and it is a UK company. And I think there was a caller on Wednesday, I don't know if she's still listening, and I think she was trying to determine whether it was a similar testing being done in the UK, and perhaps, which is why I was alluding to early on, we getting the information bits and pieces, and people are not able to then read it in a logical manner to understand exactly what's going on. So then they can actually probably repeat inaccurate information. The company is from the UK. That's one.
Yes.
And as we know, that they've used the cows, I think, in the UK to do the testing because it's known to be the healthiest set of cows, and perhaps that's where the misconstruing coming from, that this particular testing of the mosquitoes might have happened there. But as Dr. Petrie said on the show, that's not possible because of the type of area, and the mosquitoes are more concentrated in this area. Let's talk about the credibility of Oxitec.
Dr. Petrie can vouch for Oxitec so well, but that makes perfect sense. They're collaborating on a project by their own admission. Somebody serves together. Feather in their cap from a scientific standpoint if this wins, and I want it to win because I don't want us to have, as Katina was closing a while ago, a flying bird in the next few months. But it's just a reality, and those are the sort of questions that people have on the ground. It's not just scare tactics; it's just a reality. But in terms of Oxitec and their credibility, Laura, I can't speak to Oxitec's credibility. Well, I can on a personal level.
Yeah, on your personal opinion and perhaps some research information that you found.
On a personal level, Oxitec's credibility is shot with me because they haven't been open and transparent, and I've only been able, or we as a group, but certainly have only been able to ascertain the information that we've received from them as a result of bringing information that we've found otherwise. We still think that they would have been talking about releasing just male mosquitoes in Cayman had we not pointed out the fact that we found studies that said the females are released. Just one example. They've not been open and transparent. In terms of what's available out there, we understand that that's Oxitec UK you're talking about. We now actually have Oxitec Cayman. We've done the magic thing.
Don't use that word magic.
Well, I could use another word, but it probably wouldn't be very nice right now. But we've done
let's be polite.
We've done the very silly thing, in my view, of giving Oxitec a home here in Cayman, and we now have Oxitec Cayman Limited formed earlier this year. We understand that Oxitec is owned. Not understand. Dr. Lacroix said that just on Wednesday and confirmed it. But we knew that already through our own research. Is owned by Intrexon. Who Intrexon is, I don't have a clue, to be honest with you. We haven't studied them, but we understood that relationship was in 2015, and the Oxitec Cayman Limited came online in February of 2016. Very interesting, in my view. We understand that Intrexon is being investigated by the FCC for exactly what, I don't know, which is the federal commission, some commission in the U.S. that has to do with financial services or otherwise. What exactly that is or how deep that is, I don't know. I'm just telling you what's available within the public sphere in terms of who we're dealing with. What impact that has on the genetically modified mosquitoes, I don't know. We just know that there's a company potentially maybe in debt or otherwise. And since they're doing this for free in Kumbaya here in Cayman, we've learned the other day, somebody's hoping for a windfall if this all goes really well, is my deducement of it.
Well, Intrexon, which is the parent company of Oxitec, on the 10th of June, the reputed Rosen law firm issued notice that there's a class action suit against Intrexon in the United States that's going on right now.
Thank you, Katina.
And I
you can always rely on her to bring the data.
This lawsuit is driven by Intrexon's claims of Oxitec's allegedly false and overhyped success in the field, both with its product and contract acquisitions, in order to obtain investors' capital.
Wow.
And it's quoted as following. The complaint alleges that throughout the class period, defendants made materially false and misleading statements. Now we know where they got that phrase from, and they said that we were being false and misleading when in actual fact we just researched all their data and brought it to the public.
Yeah.
So the complaint alleges that throughout the class period, defendants made materially false and misleading statements regarding the company's business, operational, and compliance policies. Specifically, defendants made false and or misleading statements and or failed to disclose that 1. Intrexon was overstating its revenue, and 2. As a result, defendants' statements about Intrexon's business, operations, and prospects were materially false and misleading and or lacked a reasonable basis at all relevant times. Now, see, that concerns me because I want to know who I really jumped into bed with.
Mm-hmm.
So this opens up a whole, and I don't want to say a new can of worms, but a new set of issues and questions.
We just increased our budget to $9 million, and it's to do with the relationship to do with Oxitec and perhaps the increase in buying of eggs, additional eggs from Oxitec. Neither here nor there at this point for me.
What's the way forward, Dwayne?
The way forward. Truly, I don't know if making this appeal on the radio will matter to the government again. I'm hoping so. That they revisit their decision. And again, they have not answered our petition via the Cabinet Secretariat, which is where it was submitted to start with. We got a roundabout decision via the media. This angered me so much. But to revisit that decision, failing that, we believe that we have enough numbers in Cayman to push for a referendum vote. That's how committed we are to this process. They're committed as they are to getting Oxitec mosquitoes to bite me up in West Bay, is as committed as I am to stopping them from biting me in West Bay and in this country. And I'm putting them on notice on that.
And even though it's a smile, it's a serious thing.
And I want to let you know this as well. If they think it's just two little West Bayers who are fighting this, then they got another guest coming. There are people who are behind the scenes. We know because they've messaged us. There are work permit holders in this country, people with money, people who own property. There's a gentleman who, for example, messaged us to say, we own lots of property in your country, but we won't be coming back as long as your mosquitoes are there. We don't even know what they're mutated to. This is not hearsay. This is what they've shared with us. Because they're not listening to us. The government likes to listen to people who got money. Well, we got some people with money who helping us too.
What about, Dwayne, before I ask you and Katina to give us your closing comments today, if this should not go through after your appeal and perhaps the referendum, if now you're going, my question was before you said you were going to go to the referendum approach. What is your opinion that if it's not stopped, and it goes through. And based on the information that we have from Oxitec and how the process will work, what is your view in the percentage of how it will go, and what are they hoping for the mosquitoes for it to do? To eliminate it completely?
Let me just put all and sundry, and particularly Dr. Petrie and Dr. LaCroix and the entire team at MRCU, the ministry and the government, make this absolutely clear. I pray that it succeeds.
Yes, we are hopeful.
That this experiment succeeds. You know why? If they decide to go around the people's view, but we have another little ace in our card as well, because we really don't want it to go through. But if it does, for our health's sake, for all the extremes that Katina may have raised a while ago, which has just come from people's bowels and sharing with us.
Who are not in Cayman, by the way.
Oh, some who are not in Cayman, but
yes,
also West Bayers.
As West Bayers.
I mean, have you been down to Diggins and talked to West Bay about mosquito?
Yes.
I know I have. I won't tell you, can't repeat some of it, but I have. But from a health perspective, and obviously because we have a Aedes aegypti problem, and it's the number one carrier for disease. They don't think that we get that. We get that. They just don't get that they haven't done this process right, and that they haven't admitted that we're test subjects, and that's what we are. We're test subjects. And if anybody knows anything about experiments, the only thing I've done was Mr. McLeod's Bunsen burner in chemistry, sometime back in high school. But if anything, I know the potential outcome could be either here or there or in between.
MRCU actually issued a report to a FOI request, and you can find it on the MRCU website, in which it refers to us as research and experiments, and you're free to go visit that yourself.
Right. To close, to Laura, I know you're wanting to close.
Needing to close.
Needing to close. Thank you very much for that. I hope that all goes well. The problem is that we don't know, and I don't care to be part of a genetically modified mosquito project in the Cayman Islands where I live, where's my home, and the way forward is that the government needs to know that this will not stop. Like I just said a while ago, the 9 months that they have, we will continue this fight, and we just hope that the money comes that we need to help us to do what it is that we need to do. You have a call? Okay.
No, we don't. Tina, your closing comments.
No, I just want to ask the public to there's so much information that's available out there, just start educating yourselves. Appeal to the MLAs. You're not asking them to, per se, stop it. What we've asked for them to do is suspend it until we can become educated in the matter. If at the end of the education process we're all confident that it's a competent project, then let the people have their vote, but appeal to the MLAs at this moment to halt the release of these mosquitoes, because the truth of the matter is they don't know what the outcome is going to be, nor do we. And I haven't come up with an idea or a formula or a plan in which I can pull 22 million mosquitoes back out of my environment. Thank you.
Thank you both, Mr. Dwayne Banks and Ms. Katina Anglin.
Thank you.
For your very informative session here. We've certainly appreciated all the research that you've done, and we look forward to a positive way forward, and certainly hopefully it will be rectified in this particular project, but if not, that it is a learning lesson that public consultation timely
is crucial,
and there's a reason for it.
Respect the people in our rights.
Respect. That concludes For the Record today.